All right, guys, we're back with episode 50, a big milestone for us of HYPEWORKS podcast. Just to recap, I'm Alex. I'm a co-host with Jake, and we talk about marketing, all aspects of marketing, from agencies to creators to different kind of marketing roles. And delighted to have on today for episode 50, Chris Hood. So welcome to the pod, Chris.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Coming from sunny California.
Yeah, well, today it's a little chilly, but it will be sunny later today. So
yeah, we're kind of antipodal here. Like we're in Asia and you're in California, but Pacific Ocean. But what can you do?
it's a good way to start your 50th, right? Go international,
the best
go
way.
coast to coast. Love it.
We would like to. We actually talked about like having it offline. So on our previous pod, we talked about everyone's talking about digital and AI, and everything's digital these days generally. But like offline is extremely powerful as well. And like it'd be awesome to have like a pod in California, like an offline like meetup. Maybe we could do one in Asia, one in California. We talked pre-show about like you traveled a lot in the US. Like you go to a lot of events and offline. Is that something you kind of agree with? Like, kind of offline's kind of cool as well, being overlooked at the moment.
You know, it's interesting because since we're having a podcast and we're doing this remotely, and obviously we could not have had this conversation without the digital technologies. One of my first podcasts, I had a co-host similar to your setup, and there was no online capabilities to do recording. The Skype was basically your best option. And we made an effort to actually fly to, she was actually in Washington, D.C., and I was in Los Angeles. So we were on the opposite coast. And so every so often we would make a plan, we would meet up somewhere, and we would do all of our recordings in person. And we would end up doing like 20 or 30 episodes within a weekend and just kind of scheduling them out.
Wow.
And it was great because we could, talk to each other. We could kind of collaborate. We didn't have to, go get eggs and bacon in between episodes. So there's something powerful about that, in-person collaboration and conversation. I can see your faces. We can definitely, see smiles and questions on our faces and things like that. But there is definitely something more meaningful, and intimate when you are in person and you can talk to somebody. And I think, when we look at things like remote work, events, I was just in an event last week in Utah, and I'm surrounded by fall, orange, yellow, red, leaves on trees and in a mountain canyon with rivers running through it. And, there beyond just the one-on-one conversation, just getting out into the world and exploring new things. We were talking about food, eating food, those are all human conditions that, we seem to be forgetting about in a purely digital age.
Yeah, and I was just looking at your background, and you worked in the music industry before. And I just sent there was a Wall Street Journal article. You might have seen this. Was it 2 days ago? And it had a chart of the Hollywood, the movie industry in LA, and it's basically falling off a cliff, right, because of AI and digital. So yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, like your experience coming from music, like then as it was the record industry, I guess, like and all that kind of thing, CDs to like now. What's your take on that, like the change and where we're going with that?
Well, we can see that across all forms of entertainment. If you look at television and film and music, all of them are trending downwards. And, I don't think it's solely because of digital. I mean, if we think about, the COVID instance, we had a lot of people who stopped going to the movies. So movie theater attendance started to decline. We see a lot of movie theaters actually closing up because of revenue. And so there's that element. But also we can't discount the fact that there's really no good content. A lot of the movies are, subpar. A lot of ideas are being rehashed. So, and then we've got prices that are increasing. A combination of all these things are impacting media and entertainment, whether it's, again, whether it's music, television, film, Even video games are going through a really interesting point right now in history in terms of finding quality content and engaging with that, and the cost of buying a video game versus today versus 5 years ago is drastically different. So yeah, economy conditions, environmental conditions, creativity, all of it is impacting the way that we engage in entertainment.
For sure.
I was going to say more though, like sometimes though, it's not just about human creativity, right? But record labels, distribution of the products itself is impacting the product quality. I mean, that's in the value chain, not necessarily the human creative element.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. And what's even more interesting is the adversity to risk in adopting new things is also at an all-time low. So let's just say that you had a new idea and it was a fabulous idea. It could be a multi-million-dollar idea, and it's a film and you wanted to go get it created. Well, you ask today, like, why are there so many sequels or movies, of some sort of series? That's because there's built-in trust for those properties. They do not want to take the risk and go to try to build out some new thing that hasn't been tested and tried in the marketplace. So we end up with a lot of stale type of content due to that creativity and that value chain, because the producers, don't want to take the risk. But at the same time, if we think about actual technology evolution in terms of quality, the last time we had a substantial, I mean massive type of leap in technology for film development was Jurassic Park, and that was in 1992. And we haven't seen any major changes to like sound and audio quality or digital and film experience. Yeah, the process has improved. Like what we can do with CGI and special effects today is different than what we could do in 1992. But no one has come up with like some new version of how we could do that. We're all just iterating on previous versions. And so, yeah, there's a lot of areas within that development chain that has declined.
I want to pick your brain. Sorry, go on, Jake. I'll hold.
No, I was
Yeah,
about to say, I was about to bring up
Go.
a topic that you
Go
brought
for
up in
it.
episode 49.
Okay, you go. You go.
No, it's actually your topic.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna pick your brain, Chris, on this. Like, do you think nowadays, like, music and movies were an art form, right? Traditionally, and still are. But do you think, like, I mean, this may be just me, but I think like the corporate world, like the Apples, the Google, like your former employer, these guys are coming in now to Hollywood and Netflix to a degree, and they're basically making this art form like a machine. They're turning it into like a product. Do you think that's changed like the kind of the whole space?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
You know what's really interesting in what you're kind of alluding to is we could talk about artificial intelligence broadly for a second, and the amount of hype that is around artificial intelligence is mind-numbing. And the problem is that what they are pitching is not aligned with actual capabilities of AI. And so this hype, which I've argued multiple times is really just marketing language, when you push a narrative into the world, much like if we were marketing a movie and you are trying to get that to become sticky, then absolutely you are building storytelling similar to movies and TV shows. You are hyping it as much as possible to get people to buy into that narrative, and then you're hoping that they're going to purchase whatever that product is. So the AI industry right now is very aligned to what we have often seen in the past in terms of big budget blockbuster types of entertainment projects. And yeah, it's risky. Obviously it's paying off financially for the most part, But we're also living in this fantasy world where what we are talking about, the discourse of language, is not accurate to what, reality is.
There is another element to that, though, because let's just say that I had made a workflow. I discovered a way to make my stuff better than other people, but utilizing the same technology, I would still be within the noise. So nobody would know. People are literally mind numb from it because they're like, oh, I've heard that before. And you're like, no, but this time we fixed it. Oh, I've heard it. So it's harder to break through the noise as well, even if you are capable of producing something better or different.
Yeah, totally agree with that as well. I mean, if we put that in, more or less perspective, right? Like if we go back to the beginning of television, the beginning of movies, there was roughly 5 studios that produced everything, and now, and especially in the day of AI and using tools like Sora that allow you to create content, and you've got YouTube, you've got millions of production companies that are all generating stuff and finding the stuff that resonates with you, that you like and want to watch. Our podcast is a prime example. Like trying to go out and find other people to watch your podcast in a sea of 10 million podcasts that are out there is extremely hard, because now you can argue that, well, everybody can do it. And I've heard that before, like you just said. Yeah, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. How do we stand out then, Chris? What's your take?
Well, how do you stand out is you've got to have some sort of unique, a take on it. Like think about, like if we were to identify some of the top YouTube, talent that's out there, like the first one that came to mind was, Davey 504. Like if you're familiar at all with Davey 504, he's a bassist. He has taken a very, very unique approach to how he produces content. He's the only one who does it in that style, right? And so he stands out, and I'm sure if we were to go down the list and find some others, that's the unique thing. They've come up with something different. They've come up with something that is interesting, that people gravitate towards. You've got a personality. You've got to
I
have
mean,
that kind of unique
the one
voice.
that comes to mind is Mr. Beast. He just posted
Yeah.
his 10th anniversary on, and I read an article. I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but they're basically talking about the numbers behind his thing now, and it's absolutely mind boggling. Like he's spending like 1 or 2 million per video. He's had to bring in like a professional CEO because the thing was getting out of control. So yeah, I think my point is like you say, you have to stand out, but like, is there a way forward for like creative people nowadays, like with all the sort of the platforms kind of consolidating around YouTube and Spotify or Apple? Like, what is the way forward for creative people now in general?
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer than it's scary, and I think it's going to get worse. When we start to see these AI tools that are capable of creating massive amounts of content and in extremely quick, then you don't really need to be creative anymore. The system does it for you. And so it's not about like competing with other creative people. It's about creating with also non-creative people who have been masqueraded as being creative because they can use a tool, to help them achieve that. So, it goes back to your point earlier, which is, the value proposition is completely different because the technology is making anyone seem creative. I think I mentioned this to somebody just a couple of days ago that, we are on an hour by hour basis where anybody can become viral, because all they have to do is kind of hit the viral lottery in artificial intelligence, input a prompt, and something pops out that people think is funny, right? That's not creativity. That is, blind luck. And when that grows exponentially, because now everybody can, use a prompt to generate content, where is all that content going to reside? And, we don't have enough eyeballs on the planet to be able to consume it all. And so, yeah, I think unfortunately we're going to be in a very bad position over the course of the next couple of years.
When you say bad position, can you elaborate?
Yeah, look, creative people are going to struggle because they're going to get drowned out. That's the first problem. I think the second problem is that we need to fundamentally shift how creative platforms work. Like, for example, what if we had YouTube had two different platforms, right? A platform for real people creative, and then a platform for AI generated creative. Like, there we can at least distinguish between real and fiction. And we could also begin to gravitate and support real people doing real creative content. I think kind of that segmentation, maybe it's similar to like how we have ratings on films, PG, GR ratings. Maybe we're going to need some other rating that says, AI, this is an AI generated piece of content. Some sort of identifier that is going to bring more awareness to what the content is, to allow us to distinguish between those
we
two.
We do have watermarks though right now, right? Like Sora and these guys have watermarks. Is that something maybe it could be a solution? Or
Meta also flags content that it believes is AI gen as well. But I don't think that matters, because I think we're just heading to a world where we are duly on course to merge with the machines.
Yeah, look, watermarks can be cropped out. Watermarks can be removed. Yep. You can use AI to remove somebody else's watermark. We're in this perpetual doom scrolling situation as it is. We're constantly just mind numbingly going through, our lives. And then to add, our attention spans are shortening, critical thinking skills are declining. And so all of this basically represents a scenario where, 1 second of video is too much, and I'm on to the next 1 second video. And when it's not real, and it's made up, and it's, presenting some sort of fictitious message, where do we end up? Scenarios are very challenging to predict. We can't predict the future, but where we are heading is a bad place.
Yeah. I want to talk about one aspect there, copyright. So you used to work at Fox, and Fox had all these like amazing titles and shows and stuff. And I see all these AI companies are doing deals with the publishers and the media to get access. Do you think like that's a bad bargain on the media company's side? And should we be like doing these deals, or like how should copyright work in this era?
Well, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we're faced with, over the course of the next couple of years is, most of these models are being trained on copyrighted material without paying for those copyrights. When I can go and, scan all of YouTube and just grab every single piece of content that is there, then yeah, you're bound to get existing copyrighted material. And there are several lawsuits that are out and about right now. Universal, Disney are both in lawsuits about their IPs. So some of these studios may opt to say, sure, you can scan. In television, there's this process by which we take existing non-trademarked, open registered types of content. So, anytime you've watched a movie and you see kind of like a city background scene with a helicopter, odds are that's been recorded and has been in several movies, right? It's just been reused. Like being able to use some of that or license some of that out, makes a lot of sense because it's easily and readily available. But when you get into characters like, say, Mickey Mouse, and there's a legal challenge right now because Disney's Steamboat Willie, Mickey Mouse, Steamboat, and Mickey Mouse entered public domain, and somebody began to use that and that likeness in some AI content, and Disney sued them. And they're like, well, wait a second, this is in public domain. We're allowed to use it. And even there, you've got a battle going on right now over, seemingly available content. So this is going to get really interesting again over the next couple of years to see how trademark laws, change how, AI systems are going to be trained.
I was about to say that, like, imagine for a moment, let's say that I built an AI tool that could take your website and just copy it instantly, but just change it from Chris to Jake. Where's the lawsuit go exactly? Does it go to me, or does it go to the ChatGPT that I use to generate the content off? Like,
well, first off, there are tools out there that already do that. so you could copy anybody's website pretty quickly and easily. But it's a valid question, right? Like, not to get into anything serious, right? I don't want to get into anything serious, but, think about like gun laws. If somebody shoots somebody, do you sue the person who shot
Alec Baldwin, right?
Right.
That's a
yeah.
classic
Or
example.
the gun itself, right? Well, the gun doesn't do anything, but they go after the gun manufacturers. Cigarettes were very similar. Like, you start to sue the cigarette companies for making the cigarettes versus the person who's smoking it, knowing fully well what it can do. Think about labels. So think about it like a warning label on cigarettes that say, this product will cause cancer. Are we at a point where we're going to see labels on AI where it says, warning, this product will ruin your mental capabilities, or this product potentially has trademark. We do not hold, any rights. Like, those are all valid questions, which we are going to definitely see more of, and, definitely over the course of the next couple of years.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Are you bullish or bearish on like for example Netflix, Chris? Given their, like, personally, like, I haven't watched Netflix in years. Like, I feel Netflix was good at one point and now it's trash. Do you think like the studios are going to die and then it's all going to be like UGC, like a YouTube, like a Reddit, whoever, like that?
Yeah, I don't know really. There's always going to be a desire for somebody to create something, but like a couple of years ago, somebody submitted a piece of art into an art competition and won first prize. And then later they found out that that particular piece that won first place was actually created by AI. And so there was a big uproar. Well, is that really art? You didn't create it. And the argument was, well, I had to enter the prompts in a specific way and kind of go through an iterative process to get it to where I wanted to get it. And that part is creative. So if we argue that one person takes a paintbrush and paint and goes and puts it on a screen, another person uses words, and that word and set of words is the tool that you're using to generate the art. What is the difference? And again, there's a lot of philosophical kind of look at that, but I think there will always be, people out there that will want to produce content in a traditional format. And then there will be what I call non-creative and artistic people who will want to try to build something and will have the tools available for them to do it. So, it goes back. Do we distinguish what has been generated by AI and what has not? Do we have different platforms to highlight? Will Netflix go away? Yeah, I mean, look, at some point in time, all of these platforms are going to go away and are going to get replaced by something else. Technology constantly evolves. In 5 years, if it's not AI, it's going to be something else. We could be 5 years away from some new unheard of medium in art that gets very popular. You know, we've talked about things like the metaverse and virtual reality. You know, does that change our perception of what and how we engage with art? Like, does Netflix change to a purely virtual model? You know, the mechanisms by which we watch content also changes. You know, what if we have a 3D hologram based entertainment, you know, that doesn't need goggles? There's so many what ifs. You know, all we can do is kind of look at the trends of the past and try to predict where we are heading in the future. But yeah, content in general, pricing again, as we started off with, you know, those are kind of the damaging features of Netflix, you know, declining. But yeah, and people don't want to sit in front of a TV for 45 minutes.
I think also like that raises the like other thing. Yes, the product is changing, but I also think that business models are changing quicker as well. I think that, like, for example, me and Alex both have agency backgrounds, and we have talked separately on different occasions about this. But I think that, Alex, back me off if I've got your opinion wrong, but practically that the agency model is almost dead, because it used to be, you know, you would do a project, let's say you were doing some public relations, influencer marketing, social media, advertising, digital campaign, okay? You would go, okay, well, how many people would work to then fulfill that? And that might,
how many hours, billable hours as well.
Arbitrary number, let's just say it was 10,000 10,000 US dollars. Now, today with AI, it's a race to the bottom of price. So service-based businesses are racing to the bottom to deliver a more efficient way of working behind the scenes through leveraging the technology, but it's destroying that agency.
It's funny how all the big agencies as well, like entertainment or PR or ad agencies, they all talk about being platforms now, right? They're all a platform. We're a tech platform, you know? Like they're all talking that language, like to make people believe that, you know, this is not like some traditional agency. Like, so, yeah, like, do you think it's all talk, or do you think, you know, there's some merit to that? Like that is the direction of travel. You have to become a tech platform now to survive, basically.
Yeah. So there's a couple of topics in here, and yes, everybody is a tech platform, whatever you want to call that. I mean, I was pitching that 10 years ago, right? Like I was telling everybody, you've got to position yourself as a tech platform. And, you know, it's taken 10 years for people to kind of catch up with that thought process. But look, everybody's digital. Everybody is whatever you want to fill in the blank. You know, we're online. You know, people engage with you online. You know, this is why we see things like even shopping malls, you know, across the country, around the world are starting to decline, because I can buy everything and get it instantly on Amazon. And I think that goes into the next point, which is people's expectations are unrealistic today. You know, I want the maximum value for the cheapest price, and I need it today. As opposed to traditional agency, like, okay, I realize for quality, I'm going to have to pay a little bit more, and it's going to take a little longer. Now the expectation is, you know, why do I have to wait? Like, I could go into ChatGPT and get this copy right now. I do not need to hire an agency and wait a couple of days for you to generate social media posts for me, right? And the unfortunate thing on top of all that is, I say the maximum amount of quality for the cheapest price. And quite honestly, companies don't even care about quality now. When you see companies like Coca-Cola that is using AI generated videos for their Christmas commercials that have clear problems in it, they didn't care that the quality didn't align with their typical, you know, due diligence processes. They just cared that they were cutting edge. And so when that quality concern goes down, then the expectation of price even further decreases. So yeah, I want you to build me a campaign, and I want to spend $1,000 and I need it tomorrow. That is why agencies are dying, is because the unrealistic expectations of what your clients are asking for, far, exceeds what reality is.
True. But the business model therefore has to change. I mean, again, probably we won't go into it, but both Alex and I have changed a big part of our business models to be more like SaaS, like a tech platform, effectively. So you pay a price and you get a product that's standardized, that delivers to a set of pre-written expectations. So we've done that because of the whole agency hours issue.
Yeah. I mean, business models are going to adjust, like, bronze, silver, gold tier. The agency model can definitely become a SaaS model, and you can build out whatever you want to put into, those tiers. But we could sit here and probably argue that that model even doesn't work to some extent. Whether it's on demand or whether it's monthly. I'll tell you right now, I've had a couple of conversations with different types of agencies over the course of the last month or so, and they have pricing packages that are completely outrageous, because they're looking at it as, well, look, if I charge $50,000, per month, if I sell one of those, that's okay. And that's their goal, is like, instead of volume now, it's just like, I'm just going to sell a product for what I want to sell it for. And if I get one person, then that sustains me. I mean, these models and approaches, there's also a lot of people who are doing pay on results. Like, okay, I'm your agency. We're going to produce a campaign. And I'll tell you what, we'll take 5% of whatever it generates. And if it doesn't generate enough, then you don't have to pay. And if it generates a boatload because we were successful, then yeah, we'll take 5%. Like, so pay on performance is a new model that we're seeing a lot of people, again, because I can get that out now to you quicker and without the quality checks that you're concerned with. And it's another lottery draw. Maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't, but you're not paying if it doesn't.
I think just want to talk about something, Chris, because we talked about a little bit about the platforms and the company side, but what about like consumer side? So do you think things are going to get better for consumers like as we move on? Like, because Netflix was pretty good for consumers, right? In a way, of course, Blockbuster, all the offline stuff, it was like, again, you could go all the way back to Napster, I guess. Like it became seamless. Like media became seamless. Like iPod, download a song nowadays. Spotify. Basically, we were actually at Jake's house the other day, and we were listening to music, and like literally, you can Shazam the song and then download the song like on the spot. Like if you go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you can't do that. So consumers are benefiting. Do you think that will continue? Like, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of businesses don't really reflect on enough is that consumer experience. We talk about customer experience a lot, but at the end of the day, it's push out what my product is and hope that people buy it. Technology has definitely enhanced the overall consumer experience. I tend to align it more with access, to the product. So if you think about like music, as you were just talking about, I used to have to go buy cassette tapes or vinyl records, and then it was a digital format. Then I had to manage my library in some format, and then I had to download, and I had unlimited amounts of MP3s, and my hard drive space was being used up, and I had to pick which ones I wanted on a device. And then I had a phone, and and then fast forward, and now we have like Google Music, and I can download. I've got a Google device, kind of sitting behind me, and I could ask Google to play any music I want, and it will instantly start streaming it. That's all access. Like the access to the music creates a better experience for me. So I'm in the backyard sitting by the pool, and I want to listen to music. I could just say what I want to listen to. And that is going to continue to evolve as well. I don't know how much better we can get than on demand for any music in the world. But that kind of consumer experience we can see playing out, as you mentioned, in Netflix. Instead of going to Blockbuster and walking up and down aisles to pick a film and then take it home and then have to return it, now Netflix comes online and I can just download it and watch it. And that process, that access to an unlimited amount of content continues to evolve. And
Is there any concerns there though, like in terms of like either censorship or like, for example, one of my friends got locked out of his Google account and like literally there's no way to get back in short of knowing someone at Google to fix it for you, right? Like, is that not a concern for people? Like, if your whole life's online, um, you know, it could go wrong. It could be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what that individual situation was, but we've seen this plenty of times in social media. Like you have a social media account, you have a whole bunch of followers, somehow you get locked out, you can't get it back. You try to prove that it's you go through all of the needed processes, you talk to people and they still don't let you reacquire the account. I mean, I've had that problem happen to me in the past. And so, yeah, on some level, when you put all of your, we'll go back to eggs in one basket, you tend to have a problem with, like your entire life is on, online in some form. I mean, we don't really have many paper documents. My computer behind me has tons and tons and tons and tons of photos, right? Like if it was to crash, I'd lose all of those photos. We're not printing them out anymore. There's backups are, the cloud might be a consideration for backups of content. But yeah, I mean, these are all real world problems that we're all faced with. And
here's an example. Here's an example. So you worked at Google. So Google's still technically owned by the two co-founders, right? They're still there. They're not really involved. Do you think one day, like when these guys leave, like Jeff Bezos, the Google guys, the Spotify guy, do you think one day there's an ethical concern that these companies will just be run like machines essentially? And that could be a problem. Like humanity, in terms of like ethical side, there could be some issues.
Here's a question for you. So there's a lot of talk right now about AI agents becoming employees in organizations, right? So I can use an AI agent to facilitate whatever the job is. And I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, now you can have kind of an army of agents. So instead of having 100 employees, I could have 10 employees and 90 AI agents all doing various things to help my organization grow. Well, let's kind of flip that script and say, would we ever see a company that has an AI CEO with human employees? Theoretically, what's the difference? There's a show on Netflix that's called Travelers. I'm not sure if anybody has seen it, but basically the premise is that people from the future, some big catastrophic event happens in the future, they send the consciousness to people in the present so that they can try to change events so that the future doesn't happen, right? That's the premise. Well, what you find out is that they get all of their missions of what to do from a highly advanced artificial intelligence who's telling them what to do. And so almost like, I've talked about this as well. Like, when AI becomes our God and we are worshiping a God that is AI telling us what to do, what could possibly go wrong? And yeah, these are, these could be legitimate problems where AI is, informing our realities. If we wake up every day and we have a list of things to do and it's not a calendar, but it's some artificial intelligence telling us what to do every day, at what point in time do we stop having our own autonomy in our lives?
I totally agree. And you know what? Second time in 2 podcasts that somebody's referred to the AI God. And that, as we do these podcasts, I think there's like trends of what people talk about. But what I also notice is the nuance of the way in which people talk about those things. And 10 podcasts ago, nobody was referring to AI gods. And now we've had 2 podcasts in a row where that's happened. That's where my mind is blowing a little bit. I have nothing to say. I have no value add. I don't know if the audience are going to find that interesting, but it's putting the hairs up on the back of my neck.
Well, in my book that I launched this year in January, so I wrote this book last year. It took me roughly 8 months or so to write the book. So I wrote it all throughout 2004. Then it got published in January of 2025. The book is called Infallible, and it's the artificial intelligence ideology that is reshaping consumer behavior. And it's all based on the premise that AI has become a belief system, and that ideology of artificial intelligence, treating AI as being infallible, as a god, is one of the biggest crises that we have in front of us right now. So I wrote a whole book on that premise.
I'll put something to you. I'll put something to you, Chris. Rupert Murdoch, the last media mogul. Would you rather work for Rupert Murdoch or like an AI god?
Put me in front of a real person, no matter who the real person is. I'll report to you guys instead of an AI person.
Really? Because Rupert's got a bad rep. Like, people kind of say he's a pretty tough guy.
It does not really matter to me. Like, you could put me with the worst boss you've ever had, and I would pick the worst boss in the world compared to working with an AI model as a boss.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alex, the question's back on you.
Yeah. Go for it.
No, I'm saying, were you going to pick the Murdoch?
Who would you pick as your boss?
I picked probably his son, because his son's gonna, like second generation, a bit softer.
That wasn't in the question.
Well, he's retired now, so. But yeah, no.
Would you pick the real person or the AI CEO?
Me?
Yeah, both of you.
For me, I'd pick the real person 100% of the time. Yeah, but it's got to the point where I know people that they're. I won't say names, obviously, but I once had a friend. We'll say a friend, and every time you ask him a question, he copies and pastes the answer from ChatGPT, and I'm like, I want to know what you think, not what the AI thinks. So, I think about that situation a lot, because not the only person doing that for sure. I think a lot of people do that a lot. And again, this is a recurring theme again, Alex, but people are losing their ability to think.
But the question is, like, if you don't know it's AI, is it a problem if you don't know? Like, if you don't know, if you're working remotely in another country and your boss is AI, does it matter? Like, do you need to know? Or it comes back to ethics, right?
So it's interesting. There's also another TV show called Person of Interest. Not sure if you've seen that. It's a fabulous show. And this
Netflix?
was a show that came out several, 10, 15 years ago. But it was also about an artificial intelligence that provided insights to potential murders. And so it's kind of a predictive model. And the characters would get these names, and they're like, well, who are we getting these names from? And not realizing that it was coming from an AI, until later when you find out that it's a system that was generating it. And then you begin to question, like, well, this can't be real then. How does a system know this as opposed to a real person? So there are always and will continue to be a lot of questions about the ethics behind, AI use and legitimacy and, those types of elements.
100%.
All right.
Alex, are we on to it?
Yeah, go for it.
Chris, this is the big one. Every episode we ask this question. I mean, with the AI, we always, every time AI comes up, it nudges towards this. So feel free to change the topic. It's the question that we ask. People have to think on it for a few moments. It catches them off guard, but it's, what are your future predictions? Could be anything. Life, work.
Oh, future predictions of AI or future predictions in general?
Anything. Everything.
Anything. Well,
you can pick one or two.
Talking about AI, let's stay on that topic. I think first off, you've got to realize that in probably about 5, 6, maybe we can push it to 7 years, no one's going to be talking about artificial intelligence. You're not going to be talking about it anymore. It's going to be so ingrained around us that it's just something that's out there. And I'll give you an example of the alternative. How in all 50 of your podcasts that you've had, has any guest come on to talk about their mobile phones?
No.
Well,
no.
Probably Alex, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we used to work in the smartphone industry, so probably ourselves, but no guests. There you go.
Yeah. And so if you kind of put that in perspective, AI is just going to become another technology similar to our mobile phones, and people are not going to be talking about it. We're going to move on to whatever the next thing is. We don't know what that next thing is.
Screen time right now. Everyone's talking about screen time. Yeah, abstracted.
Screen time is an issue, right? But I think we're also going to start to see AI getting more accessible, and when we get it into the palm of our hands, some wearable AI device, that's going to change it. So similar to how the iPhone changed how we communicate, there's an app for that, and all of a sudden now we had, going back to music is on our phone, video is on our phone, apps are on our phone. And again, we don't really sit there and say, hey, I've got a revolutionary idea. What if you build an app for your phone? Well, no one's talking about that. We're going to see a similar approach in the next, say, 5, 6 years, where no one's going to be talking about AI and LLMs and, ChatGPT and things like that. They're going to be talking about some sort of device that incorporates all of that as part of our daily use. So that's one. And, I often try to remind people, going back to, we talked about consumer experiences, the consumer in general. There's one thing that has remained consistent throughout all of time. For the last 2,000 plus years, there has always been a customer, whether it's on a cart buying fruit or something else. The thing that changes is the technology. The means by which we buy or purchase or consume something, a product or service, those will always change. But the person, the individual that does the purchasing has never changed. We change our wallets, we change the currency, we change, what our needs are, but we've always bought food. Like, that has never changed, and we will continue to buy food. This is why all movies that deal with the future, all the way to like Back to the Future 2, first thing he does is he walks into a coffee shop and he orders a tab, right? Like, if the process may change, the technology might change, the wallet, the currency might change, but you will always have a customer, and they will always want a product or service.
I was going to say, even in the Matrix, when we're all plugged in and being fed by the machine, the ethical concerns about the steak. I'm not sure whether you remember that scene, but he's like, obviously he's been bought out and given, digital money in the Matrix, and he gets to eat a steak, and it tastes real enough.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
On that note.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. We've got to get you back on in a few months. Have to.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it for your 100th, or maybe,
That's a great idea.
Well, yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. No, I'm going to push you guys to get to 100. Let's do it. Hold you accountable.
Yeah, we could, and we could get a few.
Let's do the 100th in California offline.
There we go.
That's a good idea.
That's a
plan.
plan.
California, we'll make it happen, or I'll come to you. Either way, we'll in person 100th episode. I'll return. I love it.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much.
Guys. Bye.